Commander Taejo walked slowly into the great council chamber. His four legs made soft clicking sounds on the polished floor. The 17 elders of the Galactic Confederacy watched him from their high seats. Taejo felt their eyes on him, all 53 of them, as some species had many eyes. The chamber was huge. Its ceiling stretched up so high that it vanished in shadow. The walls glowed with soft blue light. In this room, the fate of entire worlds was decided. Today, Taejo would ask for something no war hero had asked for in 300 years. "Commander Taejo," said Elder Vrim. Her voice was gentle but carried to every corner of the room. "You have served the Confederacy with honor for 40 cycles. Your victories against the Silicon Collective saved billions of lives. Your strategy against the devouring swarm protected 300 worlds. Why do you come before us today?" Taejo's metals clinked softly as he bowed. He had won each one in battle. Blood and pain and fear had earned him these small pieces of metal. But no battle had frightened him like his encounter with humans. "Honored elders," Taejo said, "I come to request that humans be classified as a Class 4 threat species." Whispers filled the chamber. A Class 4 threat was the second highest danger rating in the Confederacy. It would place humans alongside the most feared beings in the galaxy. Elder Zorik, whose stone-like skin cracked when he moved, leaned forward. "Humans, from the isolated planet Earth. Their ships barely reach their own moon. They have not even unified their planet. How could they possibly be a Class 4 threat?" Taejo had expected this reaction. It seemed crazy even to him, but he had seen what humans could do. "Honored elders, I know my request seems extreme. Earth is indeed primitive. Their technology is thousands of years behind ours. But after my encounter with humans, I believe they are more dangerous than any species we have faced." Elder Vrim's antennae twitched, a sign of surprise in her species. "More dangerous than the devouring swarm? The swarm ate 3 star systems before we stopped them." "Yes, Elder," Taejo said firmly. "The swarm is predictable. It follows patterns. Humans do not." The council chamber grew silent. Commander Taejo was known for his calm judgment. If he feared these primitives, there must be a reason. "Very well, Commander," said Elder Vrim. "Tell us your story. What happened when you met these humans?" Taejo took a deep breath. The memories were still fresh, even 2 years later. "It began during the border conflict with the Hydaran Empire," he started. "I commanded the assault carrier, Righteous Flame, with 400 of our best warriors. Taejo's ship had been patrolling the edge of Confederate space, watching for Hydaran movements. The area was empty except for dead stars and cold planets. No one lived there. No one should have been there. We detected an unknown ship deep in the neutral zone. Our scanners showed primitive technology, no weapons, and strange life forms we had never seen before. The ship had been small, not much bigger than a Confederacy shuttle. It drifted through space, its engines barely working. Taejo had ordered his crew to capture it. They expected pirates or smugglers. We brought the ship into our landing bay. When the door opened, we saw them for the first time. Humans. There had been 7 of them. They looked almost like Pridar, a common Confederacy species, but with less hair and only 2 eyes. They wore matching blue uniforms with a patch showing their planet and the word Pioneer. Their captain was named Jiho Park. He was small, even for a human. But he stood straight and showed no fear, even when surrounded by warriors twice his size. Taejo had been impressed by the human captain from the start. Park spoke clearly and respectfully, explaining that his ship had been testing a new drive system when something went wrong. They had jumped much farther than their technology should have allowed. According to our first contact protocols, we treated them as honored guests. We gave them quarters, food, and access to our medical bay. Their doctor, Hyun, was particularly interested in learning about our biology. Elder Zorik interrupted, his voice rumbling like stones falling. "This does not sound threatening, Commander. If anything, these humans seem harmless." "I thought the same, Elder," Taejo replied. "That was my first mistake." For 2 weeks, the humans lived peacefully on the Righteous Flame. The engineer, Taeyong, spent hours talking with the ship's maintenance crew, The science officer Suman studied the star maps in the library. They seemed curious and friendly. Then the Hydarans found us, Tejo said, his voice growing darker. 3 Hydaran dreadnoughts had appeared from behind a dead planet. Each was twice the size of the righteous flame and carried over 1,000 warriors. The Hydarans were known for their cruelty. They took no prisoners and showed no mercy. We were outgunned and surrounded. Our shields failed after just 5 minutes of fighting. Then they boarded us. Hundreds of Hydaran shock troops had poured into the righteous flame. They killed everyone they found. Taijo had ordered most of his warriors to defend the engine, room and command center, the most important parts of the ship. The human quarters were in an isolated section with only 10 warriors guarding them. I assumed the humans would hide. They were civilians after all, with no weapons or combat training. Tejo paused, the memory still painful. I was wrong. When the Hydaran troops reached the human section, they found not frightened civilians but a carefully prepared trap. The corridor lights had been disabled. The air was filled with steam from broken pipes, and waiting in the darkness were 7 humans who had turned their quarters into a fortress. Using only tools and materials they found in their rooms, they made weapons. The engineer, Tai Yong, had created explosives from cleaning chemicals. The doctor, Hyun, had studied Hydaran biology and knew exactly where to strike to cause the most damage. Captain Park had organized the defense. He positioned his crew at key points and set traps in the corridors. When the Hydarans charged in, expecting easy kills, they ran into a nightmare. 7 humans with improvised weapons killed 43 elite Hydaran warriors before our troops arrived to help. The council chamber was completely silent now. Even the elders who usually doze during meetings were wide awake. But that was just the beginning, Taijo continued. What happened next convinced me that humans are unlike any species we have encountered, and far, far more dangerous than they appear. Elder Vrim leaned forward, her antennae perfectly still. Continue, Commander, we are listening. Taijo nodded. The worst part of his story was yet to come. After we secured the ship, I found Captain Park in our medical bay. He was treating wounded, both human and Confederate. His hands were covered in blood, but they moved with steady precision. Taijo had asked the human captain a simple question. Why had they fought instead of hiding? The answer changed how Taijo saw the universe. Captain Park looked at me with those 2 strange human eyes and said, "On Earth, we have a saying. We're not trapped in here with them. They're trapped in here with us." The council chamber remained silent. Taijo's words hung in the air. The elders looked at each other, their faces showing concern. "Tell us more about these humans," Elder Vrim said. "Start from the beginning. How did you first meet them?" Taijo nodded. He closed his upper set of eyes, remembering. "We found their ship, the Pioneer, drifting near the Kaidara Nebula. It was small and damaged. Our scans showed 7 life forms inside, but we didn't recognize the readings. They were unlike anything in our database. The righteous flame had been on high alert. The border with the Hydaran Empire was always dangerous. Any unknown ship could be a trap or a spy. Taijo had ordered his warriors to prepare for combat as they pulled the strange vessel into their landing bay. When the ship's door opened, I was surprised. The beings looked almost like Pradari, but with less hair and only 2 eyes. They stood on 2 legs and had 2 arms. They looked soft. The first human to step out was Captain Jiho Park. He was shorter than most of Taijo's warriors. His black hair was cut short, and he wore a blue uniform with silver markings on the shoulders. Behind him stood his crew, Dr. Hyun, Engineer Taeyong, Science Officer Suman, Communications Specialist Do Hyun, Navigation Expert Minho, and Security Officer Yoonji. Captain Park spoke first. He held up empty hands to show he carried no weapons. He said, "We come in peace. We are explorers from Earth." Taijo's translator had trouble with their language at first. It was simple, but full of strange meanings, and double uses for words. After a few minutes, they could understand each other. I asked how they had reached Confederate space. Earth was many light years away, and our intelligence said humans had only primitive space travel. Captain Park explained they were testing a new drive system when something went wrong. They jumped much further than planned. The humans had been lost and confused. Their navigation systems didn't recognize any stars. Their food supplies were running low. Their ship was damaged. Following our protocols for first contact with non-aggressive species, I offered them shelter on the righteous flame while we decided what to do with them. Elder Zorik interrupted again. Did you not consider returning them to their home planet? Immediately. I did, Elder, Taijo replied. But we were on alert for Hydaran movement. I couldn't spare a ship to take them back. And at the time, I saw no danger in keeping them aboard. The humans were given quarters in an unused section of the ship. They were comfortable rooms meant for diplomatic guests. The humans seemed grateful for the help. In those first few days, the humans mostly kept to themselves. They were curious about everything but careful not to break rules. They asked permission before entering new areas. They smiled often. They seemed harmless. Taijo paused, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. The memory still bothered him. Then I began to notice things. Small things at first. Dr. Hyun had asked to visit the medical bay. She was interested in learning about Confederate biology. The ship's doctor allowed it, seeing no harm. But Hyun asked very specific questions about different species' weaknesses and pain responses. Engineer Taeyong spent hours talking with our maintenance crews. He asked about our engines, weapons, and shields. He claimed he was just fascinated by our technology. Our engineers enjoyed explaining things to someone so interested. Science Officer Suman studied star maps and Confederate history in the ship's library. She learned quickly and remembered everything she was told. Communications specialist Do-hyun picked up our language in just days. Soon he didn't need a translator. He learned not just our words, but our body language and cultural references. What had seemed like friendly curiosity now looked like something else to Taejo. Intelligence gathering. Security Officer Yoonji watched our warriors train. She asked to join them. Our combat instructor allowed it, thinking it would be amusing. She was defeated quickly in the first few matches, but she learned from each loss. By the end of the week, she could beat some of our junior warriors. Elder Vrim leaned forward. You believe they were spying on you? Not exactly, Elder, Taejo said. I think they were just doing what humans always do, learning, adapting, preparing. They don't plot like the Silicon Collective or hunger like the devouring swarm. They simply improve themselves constantly. On the 8th day, Taejo had invited Captain Park to dine with him in his private quarters. He wanted to learn more about these strange beings. I asked Park about Earth. He told me humans live on a planet with extreme environments, burning deserts, freezing poles, vast oceans, high mountains. To survive, they had to adapt to all of these conditions. Park explained that humans evolved surrounded by predators. For most of their history, they were not the strongest or fastest creatures on their planet. They survived by thinking, planning, and working together. Park told me something I found hard to believe at the time. He said humans had no natural weapons, no claws, no poison, no armor. Their only advantage was their brain. So they made weapons from the materials around them. First stones and sticks, then metals, then chemicals and atoms. Elder Krell, who rarely spoke during council meetings, raised a thin tentacle. This is their danger? That they make weapons? No, Elder, Taego replied. Many species make weapons. The danger is how quickly humans learn and adapt, and what happens when they feel threatened. Taejo continued his story. For 2 weeks, the humans lived aboard the Righteous Flame without incident. They followed rules, helped where they could, and shared information about Earth. They showed pictures of their blue planet, played their music, and taught the crew simple human games. I began to like them, especially Captain Park. He was thoughtful and asked good questions. He treated my warriors with respect. When he learned it was the hatching day of my second in command, he organized a small celebration in the human style. The crew of the Righteous Flame grew comfortable around the humans. Some even looked forward to their company. The humans' strange ideas and different way of thinking were refreshing. I decided to return them to Earth after our patrol ended. I informed Captain Park of my decision. He thanked me, and said they would be ready to leave whenever we could transport them. That night, Taijo was awakened by battle alarms. 3 Hydaran dreadnoughts had appeared from behind a dead moon. Each was massive, carrying over 1,000 warriors and heavy weapons. The Hydarans attacked without warning. They jammed our communications so we couldn't call for help. Their first shots targeted our engines to prevent escape. Their second volley took down our shields. Taijo rushed to the command center. His crew was already at battle stations, but the situation was grim. The righteous flame was outgunned and surrounded. I ordered all warriors to defensive positions. I knew the Hydarans would board us next, they always did. They enjoyed killing up close. As Taijo predicted, Hydaran boarding pods soon attached to the righteous flame. Hundreds of shock troops poured onto the ship. They wore heavy armor and carried plasma cutters that could slice through Confederate warriors with ease. I had to make quick decisions about where to place my defenders. I sent most to protect the engine room and command center, the human quarters. I left with minimal protection, just 10 warriors. Taijo's eyes all closed at once, a sign of deep regret in his species. I assumed the humans would hide. They were just 7 civilians with no weapons or armor. What else could they do against Hydaran shock troops? The elders leaned forward, waiting for what came next. Taijo opened his eyes, all 4 of them focusing intensely on the council. I was wrong about the humans, very wrong. And that mistake changed everything. The council chamber was completely silent. Even the elders who usually fidgeted during long stories sat still. Taijo continued, his voice growing tense as he recalled the battle. The Hydaran troops poured into our ship. They moved in groups of 10, each group led by an elite warrior. They killed everyone they found. My warriors fought bravely, but we were outnumbered. Taijo had rushed from the command center to join the fight. The corridors of the righteous flame were filled with smoke and the smell of burned flesh. The screams of dying warriors echoed through the ship. I led a team to defend the engine room. If the Hydarans took control of our engines, the ship would be lost. We fought for almost an hour before we secured that section. After the engine room was safe, Taijo received reports from around the ship. The command center still held. The weapons control room was under heavy attack but holding. Then he remembered the humans. I suddenly realized I had left the humans, with only 10 guards. Against Hydaran shock troops, that was nothing. I felt terrible. These were guests under my protection, and I had failed them. Taijo gathered 20 warriors and rushed toward the human quarters. As they got closer, they heard strange sounds, not the normal sounds of Hydaran weapons, but explosions, hissing and high-pitched screams of pain. When we reached the corridor leading to the human section, we found a scene I will never forget. The floor was covered with dead Hydarans, at least 20 bodies, maybe more. The walls were splashed with their green blood. The 10 Confederate guards Taijo had left were all dead too, but they had died fighting at a barricade at the far end of the corridor, away from the human quarters. It made no sense. Who had killed all these Hydarans? We moved forward carefully. The air smelled strange, burning chemicals I didn't recognize. Some of the dead Hydarans had no visible wounds. Others looked like they had been stabbed with great precision. One had a metal pipe driven through the breathing hole in its helmet. At the entrance to the human section, Taijo found more bodies. A Hydaran officer lay dead, his armor melted in spots. Next to him was a small device made from a food container with wires sticking out. That's when I heard a voice from inside, the human quarters. It was Captain Park. He called out, "Commander Taijo, is that you?" Taijo had confirmed his identity, and Park told him to wait. After a minute, the human captain appeared in the doorway. He was covered in green Hydaran blood. In his hand, he held a makeshift weapon, a broken metal pipe sharpened to a point. Behind Park stood the other humans. Each held a different improvised weapon. Dr. Hyun had surgical tools strapped to the end of a pole. Engineer Taeyong carried a container connected to tubes and wires. Security officer Yoonji held metal rods in both hands, their ends dark with Hydaran blood. The humans looked different now. Their faces were hard, their eyes alert. They stood ready to fight, not like civilians but like warriors who had seen battle before. I asked what happened. Park simply said, "They came for us. We were ready." The human captain led Tejo into their quarters. The room had been transformed. Furniture was arranged to create barriers. The walls had marks where they had tested the sharpened ends of their weapons. On a table lay detailed drawings of Hydaran armor, with weak points clearly marked. Park explained that they had been preparing since the first day on our ship. They didn't know if they would need to defend themselves, but as Park said, humans always prepare for the worst. Each human had used their skills in the fight. Dr. Hyun had studied Hydaran biology during her visits to the medical bay. She knew exactly where their bodies were most vulnerable: the breathing holes, the joint connections, the sensory organs. Engineer Taeyong had created explosives and poison gas from cleaning chemicals and food ingredients. He trapped the corridor outside their quarters. When the first Hydarans charged in, they triggered his devices. Science Officer Suman had calculated exactly how Hydaran armor moved. She found the gaps that appeared when they raised their arms or turned quickly. This allowed the humans to strike at unprotected areas. Communications specialist Do-hyun had recorded Hydaran command phrases. He played these sounds to confuse the troops, making them hesitate at critical moments. Navigation expert Minho had mapped the ventilation system near their quarters. He guided Security Officer Yoonji through the vents to attack the Hydarans from behind, and Captain Park had coordinated it all. He positioned his crew at key points. He set traps where the Hydarans would be forced to group together. He used everything he had learned about their tactics against them. Elder Vrim's antennae twitched rapidly. "How many Hydarans did these 7 humans kill?" 43, Taijo said flatly. 7 unarmed humans killed 43 elite Hydaran, shock troops using only what they could find in their quarters. Whispers filled the council chamber. It seemed impossible. Even trained Confederate warriors had trouble facing Hydaran troops, for primitive beings with no natural weapons to defeat so many. But what impressed me most was not the number they killed, Taijo continued. It was how they did it. They didn't fight like animals defending territory. They fought with strategy, with purpose. They anticipated what the Hydarans would do and planned for it. After the human section was secure, Taijo had asked Captain Park and his crew to stay in their quarters while Confederate warriors cleared the rest of the ship. The humans agreed, but Park made an unusual request. He asked if Dr. Hyun could help with our wounded. I was surprised, but I agreed. We had many injured and few medics left. Taejo led Dr. Hyun to the medical bay. It was crowded with wounded warriors. The ship's doctor was overwhelmed. Without hesitation, Hyun began treating injuries. Though Confederate biology was new to her, she worked quickly and effectively. I watched her save the lives of warriors who would have died without her help. When I asked why she would help us after we had failed to protect them, she said something I will never forget. Humans look after their friends, and enemies can become friends if you give them a chance. The fighting continued for hours. The Hydarans kept coming wave after wave. The righteous flame took heavy damage. By the end, half of Taejo's warriors were dead, or too injured to fight. But we won. We drove the Hydarans back to their ships. We survived. And part of that victory belonged to 7 humans who refused to be victims. After the battle, Taejo found Captain Park in the medical bay. The human was helping Dr. Hyun treat wounded warriors. His hands were steady as he applied bandages and gave water to the injured. I thanked him for fighting alongside us. He looked at me with those 2 human eyes and said, "We protected ourselves. That's what humans do. But now we'd like to help you protect your ship. I think we can make your defenses better before the Hydarans return." Taejo tilted his head, in confusion. Better? How could primitive humans improve Confederate technology? Park smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator. He said, "You'd be surprised what humans can do when we need to survive." Elder Zork's stone-like face showed rare emotion. "You allowed these humans access to Confederate technology? That violates our most basic security protocols." Taejo nodded slowly. "Yes, Elder. It does. Under normal circumstances, I would never consider it. But our situation was desperate. The righteous flame had been badly damaged in the battle. Engines were failing. Weapon systems operated at half power. The shields could not be raised. And worst of all, long-range scanners showed the 3 Hydaran dreadnoughts regrouping nearby. They would attack again soon. We had lost over 200 warriors. Many more were injured. The ship's systems needed repairs that would take weeks in a proper dock. We had hours at most. Taejo had called a meeting with his remaining officers. The mood was dark. Some suggested abandoning ship. Others wanted to fight to the death. None saw a path to victory. Then Captain Park asked to speak. My officers objected. He was not Confederate. He had no rank. But I allowed it because I had seen what humans could do. Park had stood before the Confederate officers with calm confidence. He proposed a plan. The humans would help repair and improve the ship's key systems, not just fix them, but make them better. My officers laughed. How could primitives improve our technology? Our civilization was thousands of years ahead of Earth. But I remembered the makeshift weapons the humans had created. Their ability to adapt and improvise, I gave them permission. Taejo assigned his best engineers to work with the humans. They were skeptical at first, but had no better options. The ship's chief engineer reported back hours later, his voice filled with shock. The human engineer Taeyong had redesigned our shield modulation system. The changes were simple but brilliant. He found patterns in the Hydaran weapons that our engineers had missed. His new design would make our shields 23% more effective against their attacks. Science Officer Suman worked with the sensor team. She suggested adjustments to the detection arrays. Her changes allowed the scanners to find weaknesses in the Hydaran stealth systems. When I asked how she knew this would work, she simply said, I noticed patterns in their attack formations. They prefer certain angles and positions. If we can predict where they'll be, we can hit them before they hit us. Dr. Hyun helped treat the injured warriors, but also created new medical procedures specifically for Hydaran weapon wounds. She used simple materials to make treatments. That worked better than the ship's advanced medical technology. Communications specialist Do Hyun worked with our signal team. He found a way to partially break through the Hydaran jamming. Not enough for a distress call, but enough to disrupt their communications with each other. Navigation expert Minho studied the nearby space. He identified dust clouds and radiation fields that could hide the righteous flame during tactical movements. Places the ship's computers had labeled as dangerous he saw as opportunities. Security officer Yoonji trained with our remaining warriors. She taught them fighting techniques developed on Earth. Ways to use a stronger enemy's weight against them. Methods to fight when outnumbered. Tactics for small groups to defeat larger forces. And Captain Park moved between all these groups, offering suggestions, solving problems, keeping everyone focused on the common goal: survival. Within just 2 days, the righteous flame was transformed. Systems that had been damaged now worked, better than before. Warriors who had lost hope now trained with new purpose. We were ready when the Hydarans returned. The 3 dreadnoughts attacked at once, expecting an easy victory against the damaged Confederate ship. They fired their main weapons at the righteous flame, but our new shields held. Taeyong's modifications worked perfectly. Then we fired back. Using Suman's sensor adjustments, the righteous flame targeted weak points in the Hydaran ships, places where their shields were thinnest, spots where critical systems were closest to the hull. Our first volley damaged one dreadnought's engines. Our second hit another's weapon systems. They were surprised. They had expected a dying prey, not a dangerous predator. The battle turned into a complex dance through space. Minho's navigation suggestions allowed the righteous flame to use nearby dust clouds and radiation fields for cover. The ship would disappear, then reappear to strike, then vanish again. Do-hyun's communication disruptions confused the Hydarans. Their ships couldn't coordinate their attacks. Sometimes they fired at empty space or even at each other. On the Righteous Flames bridge, Taeyo commanded the battle with Captain Park at his side. The human offered suggestions, pointing out opportunities the Confederate officers missed. At one critical moment, Park noticed a pattern in the Hydaran flagship's movements. He predicted where it would be 30 seconds later. We fired at empty space. When the Hydaran ship appeared exactly where Park said it would, our missiles were already waiting. That strike disabled the Hydaran flagship's main weapons. The other dreadnoughts moved to protect it. That was their mistake. We concentrated all fire on the second ship's engines. When they failed, the dreadnought drifted into the path of the third ship. They collided. Not a direct hit, but enough to damage both vessels. For the first time in the battle, Tejo allowed himself to hope. The humans' improvements were working. The righteous flame was fighting 3 larger ships to a standstill. Then Park suggested something truly bold. Instead of continuing to fight, from a distance he wanted us to get close, very close to the damaged flagship. It was against all Confederate battle doctrine. Close combat between ships was considered suicide. But Park explained his plan. The Hydarans wouldn't expect it. Their weapons were designed for long-range fighting, and the righteous flame could use the flagship as a shield against the other dreadnoughts. I trusted him. That trust saved my ship and crew. The righteous flame charged directly at the Hydaran flagship. As expected, the enemy gunners struggled to target a ship so close. The righteous flame fired all weapons at point-blank range, tearing huge holes in the flagship's hull. We could see Hydaran warriors being sucked into space through the breaches. Their admiral must have panicked. He ordered a retreat. All 3 dreadnoughts turned and fled. The battle was over. The righteous flame had won against impossible odds. My warriors celebrated. They lifted the humans on their shoulders, an old Confederate tradition to honor great heroes. Captain Park and his crew seemed embarrassed by the attention. Later, in the quiet of Tejo's quarters, he asked Park how humans had developed such skills. How a species with primitive technology could so quickly understand and improve advanced systems they had never seen before. Park's answer was simple but chilling. He said, "Throughout human history, we've often fought against enemies with better weapons and technology. We learned to steal their tools, understand them, and improve them. It's how we survived." Tejo looked at the council, his 4 eyes blinking slowly. "Do you understand now, elders? The Hydarans attacked us with superior numbers and firepower. Under normal circumstances, my ship would have been destroyed. Instead, with the help of 7 humans, we defeated 3 dreadnoughts." Elder Vrim leaned forward. "But Commander, this still doesn't explain why you want humans classified as a Class 4 threat. They helped you. They saved your ship and crew." "Yes, Elder," Tejo replied. "They did. And that is exactly why they are so dangerous. What these 7 humans did with limited resources and time, imagine what billions of them could do if they felt threatened by the Confederacy." The council chamber was filled with uneasy whispers. The elders looked at each other with concern. What Tejo had told them was hard to believe, yet his reputation for honesty was beyond question. Elder Vrim raised her hand, and the chamber fell, silent again. "Commander Tejo," she said, "your story is remarkable, but you still have not fully explained why you believe humans should be classified as a Class 4 threat. They helped you. They fought alongside your warriors. They improved your ship. These actions do not seem threatening." Tejo nodded slowly. He had expected this question. "What happened next convinced me, Elder. Please allow me to finish my story. After the battle with the Hydarans, the righteous flame limped toward the nearest Confederate base. The ship was damaged but alive. The journey would take 3 weeks at their current speed. During that time, I spoke often with Captain Park. I wanted to understand humans better. What drove them, how they thought, what they truly wanted. They would meet in Tejo's quarters each evening. Sometimes they played strategy games from both their cultures. Park was exceptionally good at Confederate games, quickly learning the complex rules and developing winning strategies. One night I asked Park what humans would do if they encountered a hostile advanced species. His answer chilled me. Park had thought for a moment before speaking. He said humans would try to communicate first. They would seek peaceful solutions. But if forced into war against a technologically superior enemy, they would adapt. They would steal technology, learn how it worked, improve it, and use it against their enemies. He told me that human history was full of such stories. Smaller human groups defeated larger, better-equipped forces by being more creative, more determined, and more willing to take risks. Park had explained that humans evolved on a dangerous planet. For most of their history, they were not the strongest creatures. They survived by outsmarting predators and adapting to harsh environments. He said, "Humans don't accept defeat. If we can't win by following the rules, we change the rules. If we can't fight directly, we find another way. We've survived ice, ages, plagues, and our own wars. We're still here because we refuse to disappear." The next day, Taijo had visited the humans' quarters. He found them gathered around a table covered with drawings and small models made from food containers and spare parts. They were designing a ship, a human ship, but with Confederate technology. Engineer Taeyong had drawn detailed plans for engines, better than those on the Righteous Flame. Suman had designed sensor arrays that could detect ships at twice our normal range. When Taejo asked why they were doing this, Park explained that they wanted to be ready when they returned to Earth. They would share what they had learned to help humanity prepare for a dangerous galaxy. I realized then what made humans different from other species we had encountered. It wasn't their strength or their technology. It was their mindset. They saw our advanced technology not as magic they couldn't understand, but as tools they could use and improve. Elder Zorik interrupted, again. "Commander, this still sounds like curiosity, not threat. Many young species are eager to learn." "It is not just curiosity, Elder," Taijo replied. "It is their speed of adaptation. Let me explain what happened when we reached the Confederate base. When the Righteous Flame arrived at Outpost 47, news of their victory against 3 Hydaran dreadnoughts had already spread. The base commander wanted to meet the humans who had helped achieve this impossible feat. The humans were welcomed as heroes. Our scientists and engineers wanted to learn how they had improved our systems. Our warriors wanted to learn their fighting techniques. Everyone was fascinated by these primitive beings who had done so much. The base's top engineer examined the modifications Taeyong had made to the Righteous Flame's shields. He was shocked. The improvements were not just good luck or simple fixes. They showed deep understanding of principles that had taken Confederate scientists centuries to develop. The engineer asked Taeyong how long humans had been studying shield technology. When Taeyong said 3 days, the engineer thought his translator was broken. Similar scenes played out across the base. The medical director was amazed by Dr. B. Hyun's treatments. The security chief was impressed by Yoonji's combat techniques. The sensor operator couldn't believe Suman had redesigned their detection systems in just hours. I watched all of this with growing concern. Not because the humans were hostile, but because they were so quick to understand and improve technology that had taken us thousands of years to develop. After a week at the base, Confederate High Command sent orders. The humans were to be treated with honor and returned to Earth. A diplomatic team would follow later to establish official contact with their planet. Before they left, Captain Park gave me a gift, a small metal object from Earth called a watch. It was simple technology, just gears and springs. He said humans used it to measure time. Taejo pulled the watch from a pouch on his uniform. He held it up for the council to see. It looked tiny and primitive in his large hand. Park told me, "This is to remember that humans always make time for friends and enemies." The Righteous Flame had escorted the repaired Pioneer back toward Earth. At the edge of human space, they said their goodbyes. Park promised that humans would welcome Confederate visitors when they came. As I watched their small ship disappear into the darkness, I felt something I rarely feel. Fear. Not of what these 7 humans had done, but of what their billions of fellow humans might do when they learned about the wider galaxy. Taijo stood straighter, looking each elder in the eyes. "Honored Council, I do not believe humans are evil or naturally aggressive. In fact, they can be kind, creative, and loyal. But they are dangerous in a way no other species is. They adapt with incredible speed. They see obstacles as challenges to overcome. They turn weakness into strength." He activated a hologram showing Earth, a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star. This is a species that evolved on a death world. They survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, and natural disasters. They went from simple tools to space travel in less than 10,000 years. a pace that should be impossible. The hologram zoomed in to show human cities, vehicles, and technology. Even now they are advancing rapidly. Their technology is primitive compared to ours, but they improve it every day. And now 7 of them have seen what is possible. They know about shield technology, faster than light travel, and advanced weapons. Elder Vrim's antennae twitched, thoughtfully. You believe they will use this knowledge to prepare for war with us? Not necessarily war with us specifically, Elder. But they will prepare. It is what humans do. They will take what their 7 explorers learned and build upon it. They will create defenses against threats they have not yet met. And when they do meet those threats, they will be ready. Taiyo deactivated the hologram. I recommend we classify humans as a Class 4 threat, not because they are our enemies, but because if they ever become our enemies, we may not survive the experience. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some elders dismissed Taijo's warning as exaggeration. Others called for immediate containment protocols, energy barriers around Earth's solar system to prevent humans from expanding further. Taijo stood silently as they argued. He knew many would not believe him. How could they? They had not seen what he had seen. 1 week later, Confederate long-range sensors detected multiple ships leaving Earth's solar system. Their design was a mix of human and Confederate technology. They moved faster than human ships should be able to move. Earth had entered the galactic stage sooner than anyone expected. And they were ready. The age of human isolation was over. The end.